Hi everyone, I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Management Reporter Series Part 2, Profit and Loss Statements. We appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to join us today. There are a couple of housekeeping items we'd like to mention before we begin. All attendees are in listen-only mode. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please enter them in the GoToWebinar question box, or you can unmute yourself and we will unmute you and we will get those answered. I'd like to introduce today's speaker. We have Philip Nichols, who is a principal GP consultant here at Socius. So at this point, Philip, I believe we're ready to transition over to you.
Okay. Before you drop the line, Lindsay, does the audio sound okay to you?
Yep, you're good to go.
Okay. Excellent. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Today, of course, we're going to do a webinar on profit and loss statements in Management Reporter, and I'm hopefully going to give you a few tips and show you an easy way to get your own started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, of course, I've got my Management Reporter already opened, and as with any account, row definitions. So let's go ahead and put in a new one real quickly. So I'm going to click on New, go to my row definitions, and of course, this pulls up my blank row definition. Now there are a few ways we can start this. I'm going to show you a couple of different ways. Now the first thing, of course, you could always do is pull in your accounts that you're wanting to use in your report directly from your chart of accounts. To do this in Management Reporter, you have your blank row definition. You go to your Edit menu, tell the system you're going to insert rows from dimensions. All right, your Insert Rows from Dimensions window will open, and this allows you to pull in either all or a combination or an individual segment of your account string. See, some of the fields have asterisks, some of them have the ampersands. The fields, or the segments I should say, that have the pound signs in them, those are not going to be pulled in at all. The segments where the ampersands are located, those will be pulled in. I can, of course, pull in everything, or I can pull in individual segments. I also want to narrow down the range of accounts I'm going to use. So we have a dimension range start and a dimension range end. I'm going to fill those in. In my particular chart, my P&L level accounts start at 4,000, and they run through 99.99. So I'm going to click OK. The system, as you see, is going to pull in all of these accounts. Now, if you were on the balance sheet webinar, we did this same thing when using our balance sheet level accounts. But what you'll need to look for, something you really need to keep your eye on, when you do pull in your accounts this way, you have to keep in mind that Management Reporter can also see your unit accounts. So it is going to pull those in also if they are within the range, in this instance, the 4,000 to 99.99 that you select when you tell the system to automatically pull in your accounts. So you'll always need to scroll down, and I'm going to go down through here. In my instance, I know they're way down here near the bottom. And here are mine. You see I have some that are letting me count square footage. They're letting me do an employee accounts. I have some fixed asset accounts that I'm counting, and number of telephone installations. So when you see unit accounts like that in your row set, you're going to want to get rid of them. I can simply highlight all of these, do a right click, delete a row just like you do in Excel. That takes care of those, and they're all gone. So I'm going to go back up to the top now, just do a Control Home, get back up there. Okay. So as you can see, when you pull in your accounts this way, you're going to get, of course, every natural account that you have in your chart for your P&L. And if your chart of account is similar to the one I've got, you have quite a few accounts for everything. So up here at the very top, let me make this a little larger so we can see this description better. I have lots of sales accounts. Underneath that, followed by quite a few sales discounts and sales returns accounts. Then of course we get into the various cost of goods accounts, and it will follow down through there. So my expenses, got salaries, wages, tax expenses, supplies, depreciations, vehicles, so on and so forth. So you could have quite a lot of accounts that you're trying to sum up into your P&L reporting. Now I could do this way. I know that all of my sales accounts up here at the very top. This instance, I've got accounts 4,000. Let me scroll on up. Sorry, I wasn't up far enough. I apologize for that. Control Home. There we go. I know that accounts 4,000 through accounts 4,179 are my sales accounts. So I'm going to scroll down. Right here, account 4,179. That's the end. I'm sorry, I went too far. Sorry about that. Here's the end of my sales. I apologize for that. I was going too far down. I can go in, insert some rows. I can right click, just like you do in Excel, hit insert row. I can insert a second row, and if I wanted to, I could come in here and put in a line for sales. I want to calculate all of these rows, so I'll use a tote format code. And remember, there are two types of codes to use when you're doing your calculations. You have your totes, and that's used for addition, add, subtraction. And you have your cal, that is used for multiplication, division, and if you're doing any type of if statement in your calculations. So anything more than addition or subtraction, you're going to set the format code up as a cal. Since it's adding all of these, I'm going to do a tote right now. And of course, to sum all of these rows together, I want to go from row 100 to row 820. So I can just enter, just like I do in Excel, 100 through 820. And that's going to give me a sum on all of these rows. That's all I have to do. Now, of course, I don't necessarily want to see all of this information when I run this report. Say I only want to see the sales line itself. I can go in, and in my print control column, and I have various selections I can do. The one I'm really concerned with is non-printing. I can make all these rows non-printing. And as with Excel, I can come in, do a control copy, and I can put this in on all of my rows. There we go. So now all of those rows will be non-printing. When I generate my report, I'm only going to see the sales line. So I'm going to go down through here. We'll start looking some more. I'm going to start going into my sales discounts, sales returns. I'm going to insert a couple of rows. I can highlight 2 rows, hit insert. I'll get 2 rows. So I can do the same thing as I did above. I can do sales returns and discounts. I can tell the system I want to do a tote. And I want to add rows 850 to 1330. So again, 850 through 1330. And then I can, of course, make all of these rows non-printing because I really only want to see the total. So I can copy my non-printing down. Control V. Now I can look a little further down and I realize I've got some more sales accounts down here. I have project revenue sales, project billings, unbilled project revenue, and my project revenue accounts. And I actually wanted those to show as part of my regular sales. So what I would have to do if I'm wanting to see all of these accounts like this, I can come up here, put in a few more rows, System's automatically renumbering. I can go back down. I can grab these accounts, just like I always would in Excel. Just grab everything, do a copy, move these rows of data up. Oops, went too far. Come on. I can insert those in there, and now I can change my formula to actually go down to row 824. Now I've got all my sales accounts together. Now your chart of accounts may not have those breaks in it like mine does, which require a little more work if you're trying to get all of your accounts in there. Control V. So what I'm going to do is we're going to open up another row set. We're going to look at a little easier way to create this P&L. Now, before I turn to my new set and show you an easier way to actually create your rows, I want to look at one other item on here. When I pull these in automatically from my chart, that will have a C beside them in this normal balance column. So here, see here, all of my sales accounts have that. These sales accounts here have it, cost of goods sold, some overhead accounts with this. Scroll down a little further. Do our losses, incomes, realized, unrealized gains. The system automatically puts that C there when it pulls in an account that typically has a credit balance. So of course, and I'll pull mine up real quick. Our price set up to have that typical balance of a credit. So that's why there. If you leave that C in there, when you generate your report, and I'll show it's just a number normally would display on a report. If I were to remove that C from that column and regenerate my report, my sales amounts, because they're typically a credit, are going to show as a credit number surrounded by parentheses. And we'll look at that when we generate the report. Now, as I promised, we're going to open up another new row set. We'll show you an easier way, really, to kind of create these reports. Now, luckily, since this is somewhat Excel-based, you're allowed to copy information into your rows from an actual Excel spreadsheet. So, I have an Excel spreadsheet down here where I have created myself the P&L that I want to use because I like the way it looks. So I'm going to go ahead and grab it. Now all this is just the way I would like my rows to be laid out. So I'm going to copy this, come over to my row, and I'm going to insert it. Okay, let me expand this a little bit so you can see everything. So now I have my P&L laid out the way I like it. So I'm going to do a few things here. See how easy this is to make this come together. Now the first thing I want to do is get all of my total rows, make them stand out a little better. So I can come in here, I can click on one, hold down my control key, I can start clicking on the other ones. Let me scroll down a little bit. So just like I can do in Excel, I can highlight a range of items. I can go ahead and do things like that, start hitting bold. It's going to bold everything I've selected. Of course, if I want to, I can also highlight them. I can change the font in these if I want to. As long as I have everything highlighted, I'm good to go. I can click on other items, such as my sales to my other income. I can hit my indents. I can go ahead and get those to move in a little bit. And again, you can do that for entire ranges. You can skip between them. It's going to indent everything. It'll just make it a little better looking. And of course, get it in a way that you want to present it. There we go. Okay. So what I can do now, because you see I've got mine laid out, I've got all my sales together, my sales returns and discounts, my other income, ways I can put my accounts in now. The first thing I'm going to do is go to my normal balance. I know my sales are normally the credit balance. Now, since I've started this manually, the system has not, of course, automatically pulled in necessarily all of the information that I'm going to need. So I know they're going to be C's. And now I can start to put in my accounts, my link to financial dimensions. And as you know, you can do either ranges of accounts or you can do account categories. We're kind of going to do a little bit of both, show you how they work. First thing I want to do, I'm going to do account categories. So I double click on my link to financial dimensions and my dimensions window opens. Now account categories are great. They're an easy way to set up a report as long as you know all of your accounts have the correct category assigned to them. And that, of course, is, let me pop my account window back open, the category that you assign right here within Great Plains. So let me get my row back open. So I go to my account category field, double click. I look up here, it's going to show me all of the categories I have set up in my system. And I know at this particular line, I want to pull in my sales. All I have to do is hit OK. The system puts that in there. I hit OK. It's in the category now. Let me expand this out a little bit so you can see all of it. So I have my account category, sales. I can go to my next row, sales returns and discounts, which I know, again, accounts in here have credit balance. I do the same thing. Account category. I'm going to look them up. And I can actually type in part of it, and it'll help narrow down my listing. I have sales returns and discounts. Click OK. OK. System puts it in. I can carry on. I've got my other income, which again I know, credits, account categories. Choose my other income. So I'm filling it in, and I'm going to keep on going and do my other categories here to get the rest of my chart set up. All right, the next thing I want to look at, cost of goods sold. Same thing, I'm going to drill down into the account category and grab the cost of goods sold. Okay, now this is actually not, I need to pull this back up. I shouldn't have grabbed that earlier because that's actually just a heading right there. So I'm going to start with my selling expenses. Again, I'll come over here, grab that category. Here's my selling expense, my salaries. Oops. I have other employee expenses. Now, of course, how many of these you have, really depends on how many categories that you've set up. Because the system comes with 48 available categories, but then you can set up as many new categories of accounts as you desire. Okay, the next few items, I've got those stored under my administrative expenses. Pull in my depreciation expenses. I have my taxes. here. Did I put in a category for travel? I don't have a category for travel, so I'll need to come back to that one, which is fine. And I'll check my other expenses. All right, so I don't have a category that's set up for my travel and entertainment, so I don't necessarily have to have a category for this. I can go into my accounts. I can search. I may not have any travel accounts actually in here, which could be a good thing if I don't have this. But let's get down in here. There's all my depreciations. There we go. I do have one. And I have my meals and entertainment advertising. Let me check those accounts. Now, what I want to do is make sure I haven't used those already. Because remember, I did pull administrative expenses earlier, and these are set up at the administrative level. So I can go look at these accounts, 6520 and 6530. I can pull those up in GP and just verify what they're set up as in their categories. So you see, I've already got those covered under my administrative expenses. Now I can leave them there, or if I want to pull them out, I can set them up separately. And I'm going to do that and show you some of the tricks you can do. So we know 6530 is the account that I want to pull out right now. So I'm going to go grab that. Back here in my row definition. And I'm going to pull in my 6520 also. So I want to do my 6520. And my range, of course, is going to be to 6530. I hit OK. System pulls that into the accounts. I tell that OK. So I now have just accounts that I can also use as opposed to a category. But since we know that those accounts themselves are set up in my administrative expense, I need to remove those so they don't get counted twice. So I can go up here to my admin expense. I have my account category. And the power of this window is it allows you to subtract things or add things in and out that aren't necessarily at the account category level. So I can come down here to my plus sign, click on it. I'm going to change it to a minus. And in the account, I'm going to type in 6520 through 6530. So now what this is going to tell the system is I want to pull all of the admin expense categories, and then I want to subtract these two particular natural accounts from that. I hit OK. And of course it expands the entire field, so you can see that it's taking out those two accounts. And then I'll be having those two accounts instead show up in my travel and entertainment expense. Okay, so let's carry on with our report now. We want to go down and we're going to do the interest income. Now in my particular chart of accounts, I believe I only have the one interest income account. Should have been my 7020. And it is. There's my interest income. So I'm going to pull that in. Again, just to give you an idea of the power of this window, how you can use various things together. So you can do account categories and accounts, adding and subtracting, all within the same row set. My gains and losses, I'm going to flip back over to my categories. As I have one, right here we go, my gains and my losses. I'll pull that back in. And now we're down at the very bottom. And I have my income taxes, interest, and any extraordinary expenses. But then you can't see it does say that. If I expand it out just a little more, I've got extraordinary items. Let me close that back up so you can see more of the screen. So this is actually going to involve more than one account category because I'm looking at my income taxes and my interest expenses. So I go in here like I did before. Pull my interest expense. And then just like I did earlier where I added the accounts in, I can also add another category in. So this is already set to be a plus. Come here, double click, and I'm going to add in my income tax expense. So that'll give me both categories. It shows both categories. Let's see, I'm about to run out of room, but I'll try to get over there. You can see they're both in there, and the system's ready to add those together. So I've almost completely populated my P&L already. All I need to do now are some simple sums, get everything added together. So again, since I'm doing a lot of adding, I'm going to use my tote format code. In this instance, I'm going to add the first three, of course, which is my sales returns discount, and my income. So I have to just do a 160 through 220. Now, since these are all showing normal balance of C, I'm also going to add that in at my totaling line for that particular section. And we have my cost of goods, and of course, then it's going to be my gross profit. I'll do my 280. I'll just subtract out the 340. Again, I'm going to put my C in there. Okay, moving on down, got all of my expenses here. Okay, now I'm going to do my net operating income. Gross profit, which is going to be my 400. Oops, sorry about that. And the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to add in the income and take out the gains and losses just in my calculation here. Of course, I could have done another subtotal on those two and added it in that way also. Then I'm all the way down, I'm down to my net income. There we go. Oops, I put that on the wrong line. Sorry about that. I'm going to go add in my totes. We've got everything covered there. Just to go back and check, make sure everything's okay. I need to put in a few more C's because I know that these certain accounts are going to require this because they have that normal credit balance. And put it in on the tote rows, of course, where they're involved. Let me look at this again, verify I've got everything filled in here correctly for myself. believe that's all I'm needing on there. Okay. So there we go. So now we have our totals in, and we have our normal balances set. Now something else you may have noticed, so we look down through here, and this is something that's always required in Management Reporter. Every row has to have a number. If the rows, for some reason, do not have a number beside them, the system cannot use them when it's calculating your actual report. So every time you insert rows, let me click down here, like here, 1150 to 1180. If I insert a row right here, the system is going to go ahead and give it a number that falls in between 1150 and 1180, which is 1165. Now it's going to keep doing that. It'll keep having it every time I insert another row. Now I'm 1150 to 1165, the number in between those is 1158. It'll keep doing that until it runs out of numbers. Once it runs out of numbers, it's just going to start using blank rows. So if you find yourself with blank rows, before you hit save, all you have to do is come up here to your edit menu, tell the system you want to renumber your rows. Hit OK. It wants to know where you're starting and how you want to increment them. 130 are the defaults of the system, but you can change those to something else if you'd like. Hit OK. System goes ahead, puts in numbers into those rows, and they're now ready to be used when the report's generated.
Hey, Philip, we have a quick comment, real quick.
Okay, sure.
Somebody was saying that on row 910, should it be plus 820 minus 850?
You know what? Did I do that back? I am so solid. You are absolutely correct. I'm sitting here doing bad accounting. I apologize. Thank you for catching that. But yes. Thank you so much.
No problem.
There we are. All right. I've corrected my calculation now, and it will actually be correct. Okay, now a couple of other things that I want to do is I'm going to put some lines in here. You see I've got some blank lines, so we'll scroll on up. Okay, so the system will automatically put in underlines for you if you want it to. Go to your format code column, and of course that's where you do your totes and cows from, but there are also quite a few other things you can do with this particular column, such as put in descriptions, you can do titles, you can do columns, you can do underlines, you can do various types of lines, you can put boxes around various things, you can do sorting. All of these are done by the code you select in column C. So now I want to put some underscores in here. I'm going to choose that, and I can actually copy that down to above all of my totals. Oops. And this one right here, I'm going to put in a double. Okay. Now, what I can also do is I can prevent those from showing on the chance that one of my total amounts does not have anything in it. Like let's say my total revenue right here, row 280. Let's say that for some reason I had zero revenue and I did not want this underline showing when I had no revenue. So my revenue is on row 280. So what I can do is in my related formulas, rows, and units column, I can type in 280. That tells Management Reporter that as long as 280 has something populated in it, then print this line right here. So I'm going to go on down and do the same thing in each of these. So my gross profit is on 400. Same thing, I have a line here, type my 400. So now every time there's amount 400, my underline will print, otherwise it will not. And this will help, just prevent you from having a lot of just underlines in sections of your report where nothing is at. Oops, don't want to put any weird codes in there. And one more, which is our 1030. There we go. Okay. So we set up our descriptions. We've done our formatting. Some formatting, I should say. We've put in our calculations. We've added in some related formula rows so that the system will not print underlines when it does not need them. I've set my normal balance column in for the things that I know have a normal credit balance. No print controls right now, no column restrictions, no row modifiers, and we've used a combination of account categories and account numbers to create our report. So I'm going to go ahead and save this for just a moment. And I can, of course, either click on my Save button, or I could close this and it would ask me what I wanted to name it. So I'm going to call this my test P&L row. There we go. All right. So you see that adds that in. Now something you may want to do while I'm in the row set, I wanted to bring this up real quick. If you are building the reports and you have other people in your company who are generating reports, or they may also be building reports, and you may have spent a few hours putting up a row set and you don't want anyone to actually change it, you can go in, and everywhere you see this little lock, when you click on that, it allows you to protect what you set up. So you can password protect your row set that you've just created, and no one except you or the people you give the password to will be able to make any changes to this particular row set. Now they will be able to make a copy of your row set, and then they can change that as they please. They can just not make any changes to the original one without a password. And that's very similar to the way you can lock Excel spreadsheets up. And that's available at the row definition level, the tree definition level, and the column definitions. Okay, so now that I have created my row my definition here, I'm going to go in and do a very quick column definition. I was going to do a simple one because I want to show you a few things. I'm going to go to new, I'm going to do a column definition. Let's open it up. And the way it's very simple, I'm going to come in here, I click, and of course, if you've set up a report before, you know this is where you choose what type of column you want. So I'm going to insert a description column, and I'm going to insert one column for my financial dimensions, which are, of course, the amounts from my general ledger based on the accounts on the row set. Okay, I'm also going to add in a simple header here. Now, of course, when you're doing headers, you have a choice. You can either type a header in, or you can put in auto text. Auto text will be generated by the system every time you run the report. And there's quite a few things in here you can do. You can do months, abbreviated months, periods. You can do fiscal years, calendar years. You can choose dates, currency codes. You can pull unit names in from your tree, which we will look at in just a moment. I'm going to do just my month right now. I'll hit OK. System goes ahead and inserts that. I'm going to save this. And I'm going to call this also test P&L column. All right, let me close that. Okay, so I have my row set together. I've done a simple column. So let's go ahead and create a report definition now to combine those together. So click New, Report Definition. And this, of course, is a control center for my entire report. This is a brand new one. So let's look at this. It automatically pulls in the company that I'm logged into. Now, if you have multiple companies, you know the Management Reporter will let you set a default company when you're logging in. So whatever you have set as your default is what's going to automatically pull in here. Detail level right now is financial. I'm going to go ahead and choose financial and account because I want to be able to drill down on my report. And I want posted activity only, even though I do have the option of adding in unposted if I'd like to see that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and run this. Set my base period to be April of 2017. System tells me the periods that are being covered. I get my report date, which should be the last date of my month. Default base period is S-1. That allows the system to automatically date your report. So if you leave your reports always set at S-1, since I'm opening the report and the system is in July right now, then it's assuming I want to run reports for June. That is why this had a 6 in it when I opened up the brand new definition. I'm going to find my row, which is my test P&L row. I'm going to find my column, which is my test P&L column. All right, it's not too bad. So I'm ready to go ahead and generate this report. I'm not going to change anything else right now. I just want to look at the data. So I'm going to click Generate. We're going to start running here. There we go. We have a report. Of course, you see it, the system goes ahead and titles it, but I'll show you we can go in there and change these to be anything we want them to be. I'm running it for April, so that's what it's throwing in there. So it's showing me my sales. You notice I have some blanks in here. Those are from rows which have no data. Now you can either display those, you can tell the system to hide them, or you can show those to have 0 amounts if you want. Let's go back to our row definition. Let's go in and change some settings here. I'm going to leave those rows there for right now. So I'm telling it to display rows with no amounts, but instead of displaying blanks for 0 amounts, I'm going to turn that off. And I'm going to save this and regenerate it. Give it a name as I'm saving it. Generate again. I didn't change the period, so the same report will pull up again. So now my report is up, but it's showing zeros for the rows that have no amounts. And of course, now remember back here on the row definition, on the main tab, I chose financial and account, which means I have the ability to drill down on my rows. So of course I can hover over these, and everything that gets an underline means the system will be able to drill down on that. When you're on a line with a 0, you do not get that underline. Then back up in here in sales, I do. All I have to do is click on that, and I'll get my drill down report. And in this instance, it breaks it out into the individual accounts, and I can see everything I needed. All I have to do is go backwards. It takes me back to my main level. Same thing, my COGS, I can drill down on those. It'll show me what's making up my COGS amount. All right, now let's say you were generating this report. Other people were going to have access to this, but you didn't necessarily want them to be able to drill down on certain things. Like say you didn't want salary expense. Here I can drill down on it, but let's say you didn't want the users to be able to do that same drill down, but you did want to allow them to drill down on other parts of this report. What you can do is, let's get back to our report dimension. We're going to go back into our row. So on my salaries and expenses, I can lock this down to prevent drill down. And that's done using the print controls on the rows. And when you're doing a print control on a row, it only affects this one individual row. So I'm going to click on this. Again, I have my menu like you saw the non-printing earlier. There are other things that want to do currency symbols, but what I'm really interested in doing is suppressing these rows in account detail reports. I select this. It puts the XD code in there. I'm going to save that and close it, and I'm going to regenerate the report again. So I get the same report as before. If I click on sales, it underlines because I can drill down on it. But now let's look at our salary expense. Okay, I no longer get an underline, and I can no longer click and drill down on that individual section of the report. Because, based on how you have your detail laid out at the natural account level, you may not want people to necessarily see everything that makes up a total that you put on your report. So you can use that little print control to prevent those drill downs from happening. But of course, back at the one I ran earlier, I still have that drill down available because this was generated prior to my making that change. Other things you're going to want to do, which are good to do, is to put yourself in a test row. So you can just do some quick verifications. So I'm going to put in a row that I'm going to call test, and I'm going to put in another one called out of balance. Yep. So I'm going to use my test row, and I'm going to make this a non-printing row because I don't really want to see it, but I want to use it in a calculation. So I make it a non-printing row. I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to put in my accounts. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use all of my P&L accounts. And let's just say I choose them all for right now. Okay. So I've got a range of accounts that's put in here. This is going to be a total row. And I want this total to be my hidden row minus my net income. So what I'm looking for is, of course, to add up all of my P&L accounts, compare that to what my net income row has came up with, and they should be, of course, the exact same, as long as they're in balance with each other. I'm going to make this bold, and I'm going to make it red so it really stands out on my report. Close this and save it and regenerate. Now, of course, or as I mentioned before, when you pull in all of your P&L accounts, they're going to include unit accounts because the management reporter can use unit accounts in calculations on reports or to display data on reports. Now, because I use that account range of 4,000 to 99.99, I have unit account data on my report. So when my new report pulls up, if I scroll down a little bit, see it's telling me that I'm out of balance, way out of balance. So what I know that I want to do is, of course, I think to myself, well, I've got my unit accounts in there. I can go in there and remove those very quickly. Go back to my row set again. Go into my account range. Okay, so I still have the entire account range, but what I know I want to do is remove some of these accounts. So I can come here, change this to a minus sign, drill down. I'm going to scroll on down because I just know where my unit accounts are at, as you'll know where yours are at. Okay, I want to get rid of course, my square footage, the employee count, fixed asset computer, and the number of telephones. So 9010 through 9040 are the accounts I want to remove. So I'll select my 9010. My range is to 9040. Hit OK. So there we have the entire range minus some particular accounts. Hit OK. I'm going to save that, regenerate my report. And if that was the only out of balance issue, then my red line won't show. So the system is saying I'm still out of balance. So now, of course, I need to think, okay, how come when I'm looking at my net income right here, and then I'm adding up all of my accounts, why am I still out of balance? So what this, of course, is going to allow you to do is look at everything. So you see I'm way out of balance here. I'm going to click on my test. And so this will show me actually every account that's being pulled in, and I can start from here looking at each one of these to try to determine what I might need to change or look at in order to get this into balance. And of course, so we have the various cells, and it lays it out actually by the individual accounts here. Now you can also go back into your report. Let me pull that up real quick. Go back into your row. We can remove this non-printing, save it, regenerate it, and it'll print that for you. So again, so now that's actually showing on your report, and you just have to click on it, and then again, it's going to show you all the accounts, and now you'll start going through those, verifying which ones might be incorrect. Now let me switch real quick to something I've got in here. I've got another report I did earlier. Yes. Let me verify that my test drive is still on here. It should be. There we go. I'm going to generate this one for you because it has an actual specific instance of what could potentially be wrong. Let me change this to 4 really quickly. Of course, this one is out of balance also. So I'm going to drill down on this. I'm going to drill down on my test row. And I know the amount that I'm out of balance. I'm out $1324.96. So when I drill down, I'm looking here at everything, and I see that exact amount that I'm out of balance on my purchase price variance unrealized. Okay, so I know that I pulled that account in because it's part of the accounts that I pulled in using my account categories. But I want to go look at that and see why it might be wrong. So if I go back into my row set, and of course, just like the other one, everything here is set up using the account categories. My purchase price variance should be part of this right here, and it doesn't appear to be. So I'm going to go see what's going on. So I'm going to go back into GP. I'm going to pull up Smart List real quick. I just want to look at my accounts real quick. I'm going to do a column. I want to add in real quick my main account segments. Move that up to the top. Take out the whole account number. Just run it like this. I'm going to do a search because I only want to see that particular range of accounts. I'm going to do a main account segment. It's between, and I think those my COGS start around 4,500. I'll say to 5,500. Hit OK. All right, system pulls those up. And as I start looking down through there, I come to my purchase price variances, and I see that it's set up as an accounts payable category instead of being in with my cost of goods. So I can actually just go in, change this category. If I can find the category that I want to change it to. Because unfortunately, these are not in alphabetical order. There we go. I can save it. Refresh my smart list, verify that change took place, and it certainly did. I can go back in here. I can regenerate my report. And that should take care of that imbalance. So it's good to have those check rows because that does allow you to just have one total for everything in your P&L account range, and then you can compare that to all the calculations you've done, and hopefully that'll help you find where you may have made a mistake. Now that fixed everything. There we go. My out of balance is now 0. So on this particular instance, that was an easy fix. Hopefully they're always that easy of a fixes, but now my P&L is ready to go. And I believe I have talked myself out of time. So that is it. That is our presentation on working with P&Ls in Management Reporter.
All right. We do have 2 quick questions before we
All
wrap
right,
up today.
absolutely.
And then,
I'll talk as long as anyone wants to stay on the line.
and then definitely reach out either to your account manager or to Philip personally, and we will definitely get your questions answered if you have them after the presentation. But first question, when you renumber the rows, will it automatically update the related formulas, rows, and unit formulas?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Perfect. And then the second question is, should returns and discounts be a debit?
Yes, because usually on your sales returns and discounts, they are debit accounts, or they're set up to have a typical debit balance because they're the contra to the sales. So yes, so you don't necessarily need to have that C on that row.
Alrighty, well, if that is it, everyone have a great rest of your day. Our next webinar will be on July 18th from 1 to 2 on Power BI and Dynamics GP. And then you can get a full list of our webinars on our website, socius1.com/events. So enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.